A new Mortal Kombat announcement approaches. Apparently, it's Mortal Kombat 30th anniversary and a new NRS game. Maybe Mortal Kombat? Maybe not. But all of this is from a tweet from the Elder's Elder God, Ed Boon himself. I am excited and petrified, for every ounce of skepticism I have is a part of me that hopes that this thing will actually be the turnaround that Mortal Kombat needs, or at least what NRS needs. Given how Mortal Kombat 11 was hyped and how it looked like it was going to be the greatest Mortal Kombat since 9, not that hard considering there was only MKX, it wound up being the most disappointing mainline game in the Mortal Kombat series. So I think before they drop this announcement, now would be a perfect time to go back and see how NRS has treated Mortal Kombat over the years in terms of its goodies to the fans. This was supposed to originally be a teardown of the MK11 anniversary bundle, but Ed Boon has since debunked it, so I had to trim this thing down to half of its runtime.
Mercy.
You are welcome. But as a reminder, the fact that this abysmal bundle, this right here, fooled millions of Mortal Kombat fans just shows the sorry state of NRS, that fans looked at it, gave it some thought, and said, that's a new low, because they actually could believe that NRS would put this out. So for the order of this, I'm going to talk about the MK11 pre-orders, the MKX pre-orders, then I'll compare the MKX11 combat packs, then we'll jump back to MK9 and see how they did it. Afterwards, I'll talk about the missteps NRS has taken and how a refusal to course correct this could lead them down the path of bankruptcy and cancellation. Like to other franchises. Feel free to use the timestamps at the bottom to see whatever you like. Are you ready? For starters, since it was a pre-order, it let you satisfy that bogus pre-order to play as Shao Kahn for free shtick, so you had the full base roster out the gate. And despite having the same steel case as bundles were in two ninja-rific flavors, Captain Cinnamon and
Grandmaster Blueberry Ice,
it came with a bonus costume for Scorpion or Sub-Zero depending on the version you got, and a 1-to-1 scale mask of the headpiece of the aforementioned ninja. NRS could have sold this at $300 easily, but instead they sold it for $150 and threw the game in there with Shao Kahn. And in America, they had a special extended promotion at GameStop. You bought a new copy of MK11 metal lunchbox with the orange MK11 dragon and a free Scorpion mask. It's one of those ones that goes around your neck like you would do if you're in Payday. For free, that was pretty cool. And you didn't have to pre-order, you just had to buy it from GameStop. If you pre-order MK11 there, you got Shao Kahn and the collectibles. So if you order the collector's edition there, you got all of that. MKX's collector's bundle out the gate was also $150 for PS4 and Xbox One. Since it was also pre-order only, it lets you get past that obnoxious pre-order to play as Goro. Super duper annoying. You got the base game and the first 4 DLC characters via a combat pack pass. You got Jason, Tanya, Predator, and Tremor. So, you essentially got 2 3D era favorites, a cool fun character with amazing Easter egg interactions, and the most OP character in the game, plus a bunch of skins. And considering how much DLC used to cost when it first came out, if you wanted all the DLC, that alone was worth the money. But then they had to top it off with a course company made statue and a matching in-game skin. And that made it worth it. Except the Amazon European exclusive collector's edition bundle was worth even more. This European exclusive bundle had a hand-painted crafted statue of Scorpion that's much more detailed than the courses. And they threw in a prequel comic that had amazing art, MK Blood Ties, Volume 1. It had a steel card and a steelbook with Scorpio on the cover. More content, and it was $180 US, so about $30 difference than the American version. To import it from outside of Europe might have been more than that $30 difference, but given the content, for the hardcore collector, it was worth it. For those on a budget who wanted a smaller bundle or something for PC out the get-go, they had $90 MKX Premium, which was Mortal Kombat X with the first combat pack. And for roster completionists, perfect. Conversely, GameStop had an exclusive version of this bundle that came with the Cold War skin that was exclusive there for $95 total. When broken down, MKX just blows MK11's pre-order bundle out the water both ways. Better premiums for the price, as those sections could have been sold for $120 alone, and they had summer deluxe editions, so people could get something in practically every price range. I don't know if it was inflation, a bigger budget, better negotiations back in the day, But in hindsight, it feels that was a creep of how much for how little was kicking in. And with MK11 Aftermath, that's when I think it took the nosedive. Strap in and spread them, it's gonna be a doozy. In April 2019, MK11 did have a base premium version too, including the Combat Pack, which was about $100 total, making the Combat Pack essentially $40. And this time, it had 6 fighters. Shang Tsung with Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa coming back to get his beloved Sonya again. Nightwolf because Mortal Kombat 3, I assume. Terminator was played by a solid handpicked Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonator. Scream Queen Sindel, she came back, and I can't whistle well. It's the Joker, baby! And long fan requested Spawn with his animated series voice actor Keith David and his smooth velvet voice coming back for the role one more time. And in case you didn't know, Joker was only there because Ash Williams was supposed to be in there, but the legal hell curse of Evil Dead came with it, and none of the companies who owned the rights wanted to cooperate. As a result, the entire concept was scrapped, but these 6 combatants that we did get were decently spread out, as well as you can split them into 9 months, from June 2019 to March 2020, and was worth the money. The cardinal sin they made, though, was that the upcoming Aftermath expansion was overpriced and caused some buyers regret. Here's what I mean. 2 months after Combat Pack 1 was finished, Aftermath was announced in May of 2020 and was released in August. There were new stages that came with the Aftermath balancing update and the respective save fatalities and friendships, and that was nice because free is good. The paid part of Aftermath came with a story mode and 3 fighters, and everyone got some skins and augments. The 3 fighters were Shiva from Mortal Kombat 3, Fujin from Mortal Kombat 4 and the Sub-Zero Struggle Simulator known as MK Mythology Sub-Zero, and lastly Robocop. Not a joke. New players could get the base game, Combat Pack 1 and Aftermath for $60 total. People who already owned the base game and or Combat Pack 1 had to pay $40 standalone to get this thing, or $50 if they wanted the Aftermath collection with certain classic Deception or MK9 skins included. Giving all the content at $60 for newbies wasn't the issue. That's expected to happen with these newer, expanded, and updated versions. Charging $40 for the standalone version of Aftermath was due to the mix of characters, their quality, and the role they presented in the story itself. Fujin was fine as is and seemed more consistent with his MKX counterpart, which was pretty close to his MK4 counterpart. Shiva was fine in terms of gameplay, but something about her role in the story, dialogue characterization, including pre-fight dialogue, and model just seemed off, especially when compared to MK9. Try comparing a red carpet picture of a celebrity that you like to their mugshot. You know it's them, but something just seems off in terms of who they are. And Robocop was Robocop, played by the Peter Wellers, who had no issues in his delivery, performance, or gameplay unless you were on the receiving end of his justice. And honestly, the only reason he's here is to give fans the Terminator vs. Robocop scenario, because MK9 had Freddy Krueger, but no Jason. He's not a bad pick, but not one I think of when I think of MK, unlike Spawn, who basically fit in perfectly. I hope that upcoming Robocop game is good. So, what's the problem? So far it sounds good, right? The biggest issue of this was the story expansion for sure. If we use the logic of Combat Pack 2, a whopping 3 characters for $15, that basically makes the Aftermath story $25, and that was too much for what the story supposedly added, when it should have been $15, making the whole thing a reasonable $30 standalone. The story mode was 5 additional chapters, divided into 27 fights with at least 5 per chapter, and clocked in around 3 hours of content, if you counted the cutscenes with the 2 endings. It sounds cool, looks cool too, and some of the choices affect who appears in a cutscene and who doesn't. Even the choreography in some of the scenes are actually pretty good and are on par or better than that 90s Mortal Kombat film. But when you actually analyze the story itself, it just doesn't work as well as they want it to. Even if you look past certain out-of-character moments, contrivances, and lack of weight in certain moments to important characters, it feels like this was supposed to be in the base game, but was cut and stretched out to make DLC, after they realized the version on disc clashed with the version they had on paper. The extra spicy kicker though, is that the bad ending is horrifying yet equally epic and badass thanks to Kerry Togawa's performance as Shang Tsung. He really sells it and low-key has you wishing he wins when you actually see the good ending, because the good ending, and most likely canon ending, insinuates and basically spells out that a reboot will be happening and as a result is unsatisfying. NRS wanted fans to buy an expansion where over half of the cost was making MK11's story more difficult to excuse, because it wasn't canonically needed and doesn't explain why a lot of cool elements like Dark Raiden were dropped from Mortal Kombat X. The classic timeline lasted 7 mainline games, but this one can only last 3? Moves and nonsense like this make people skeptical to buy fighting games and their DLC in general on day one. Very few games nowadays give you a full amount of content out the box where you get a good deal no matter what, even full retail. It does occasionally happen, but not very often. This was the first time MK retroactively didn't make that cut, not after how they handled it. They made fans feel betrayed by being loyal to NRS, by having the loyalty to the reboot timeline come at a financial loss, and buying a game and expansion that told them the story of MK11 and MKXL by extension was basically pointless, and some will see that as a waste of time regardless of the feels it had, especially since Mortal Kombat is actually some respect for its story. Then on top of that, the month after Aftermath dropped, we had the release of Kombat Pack 2. The big draw here was Moisture Maestro Rain, The Who, and Warner Bros. Promotion number 2. Rain was a welcome surprise, but he was a repeat DLC. Remember MK9? Melina felt okay, her moves were decent, but the new voice actress really didn't sell it. Not to where it was worth Ed Boon denying her comeback since pre-launch.
Your flesh looks tempting.
Yeah, you're not the first to want a piece of me.
I'll have more than one cage.
I can tell she gave it her all, but I'm sorry. And Rambo. To be fair, Last Blood was pretty damn epic, and Stallone did a great job given he recorded his lines from home, over a Zoom call, and the character actually did shake up the gameplay a bit. His arcade mode is easily in the top 5 arcade modes for Mortal Kombat 11. Take all I just described in this past couple minutes. This and all the previous DLC was sold as MK11 Ultimate a month later for $60, or an Ultimate upgrade for $30, but now that it's not on sale, it's $50 for that same upgrade. And there were little breadcrumbs here and there of a Kombat Pack 3 happening, but after almost a whole year of teasing, on July 2nd of 2021, they just said, we're done, no more DLC, just like that. They had fans waiting a whole year for something that didn't even happen, and not even 2 years of post-game content support, and that de novo patch technically doesn't count. They just see Mortal Kombat 11 money, Aftermath money, and the 2 Kombat Pack money going into the shredder. Day 1 people felt cheated out of $80 when Aftermath came out. Now imagine that, even cheaper with all the content, but now, tosses some fanfare, and they tell you this is the best deal they ever had. It makes me never want to buy an NRS game at launch. Not because of the inevitable Complete Edition, because I stand to lose more money than I should given the premium price they charge me. Injustice's Ultimate Edition had all the skins and content to give you a reason to buy that copy so you weren't completely losing money. Injustice 2 Legendary Editions include all 10 premiere skins, 5 unlockable, 5 from the get-go, and these gave you alternate skins and takes as heroes, such as Green Lantern having Hal Jordan, and Jon Stewart with Phil Lamar from the animated series Justice League coming back to play the role. Yes, they play the same, but this new voice and feeling made it feel like that version of the hero came to life, making it worth it for hardcore comic fans or cartoon fans. Especially so on sale, because that meant you got the other DLC fighters included. In terms of having something that makes you feel like you're not completely losing out, Mortal Kombat 11 doesn't have anything. And oddly enough, given how they handled it, now might have been a better time to release Kombat Pack 2 with Rain and Melina, and maybe someone else if they had time. If they did this and threw in the Mortal Kombat movie skins and the Retrocade stage, label it the Anniversary Kombat Pack, it might not have saved MK11, but it would show the NRS cared when it counted. And compare that to MKX's Complete Edition. Mortal Kombat XL added in the 2 Kombat Packs and the previously exclusive costumes 9 months after. That's right, not even a year. And yes, I said 2 Kombat Packs, so who was in the second Kombat Pack? Well, you had Triborg, who essentially were all the robotic ninjas, including Sector and Cyrax. You had Alien Xenomorph to give you the Alien vs Predator case, and oh my god, the Easter eggs included the skins. worth it. On top of that, you have Boraicho, the drunken gross master, but he was a bit more badass and his grossness was much more tolerable here. And finally, Leatherface. His playstyle was very different based on his 3 modes, but was the most brutal character in MK history. Don't believe me? Try to pull off that hammer fatality to the face. We have to win 2 matches in a row. It goes beyond that brutality music. It's that disgusting. And these 8 characters were fun to play, satisfying, true fan service, and felt in the nature of the game. So despite the price drop, MKX Premium, for those who bought it day 1, still got a good deal as it meant it was more time put into the game, with more fun characters, and you got your money's worth. There's a reason MKX is the highest selling MK game of all time despite its dumpster fire of a story mode. For MK11, not all these DLC fighters felt fun or satisfying to use, and part of this is due to MK11's combat design, being this weird mix of combos, and then the striking blows that interfere, slowing down the gameplay, and then projectiles which make it into a waiting game, and the weight limited combos, and it just rinses and repeats. It wasn't as fun to play, and it made the characters that feel like it wasn't $40. Not at least from the gameplay perspective. And seeing this happen again with Aftermath and Kombat Pack 2/Ultimate, just felt like these things were spread out as far as they could to maximize profits for minimal product output. 24 base characters, 12 DLC fighters, and 1 Shao Kahn pre-order annoyance. Let's agree, MK9 could have been sold without a bundle of any kind and it still would have turned a profit. A Return of the Roots game, basically Mortal Kombat HD 1-3, sans brutalities and animalities. Brutalities didn't come back as the designated 1 more month of development time, but at least they carried over to MKX. MK9 was unilaterally praised at launch and even became a contender for the best game in the franchise. It managed to stand alongside Mortal Kombat 2, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and Deception in the upper half of Mortal Kombat's quality back then, and currently stands in the upper third of the Mortal Kombat hierarchy. At this point, NRS had nothing but passion and respect for the franchise. They could have just sold the Mortal Kombat 9 fighting guide and called it a day. They could have been cheeky by putting Scorpino on one console version and Sub-Zerino on the other, but they didn't. They went all out, creating hype for even the smallest of versions. Console, you got the PS3, you got yourself a copy with Kratos, and he had a stage that had 3 additional fatalities, so 5 additional fatalities and a cool character that just fit in perfectly, making that version worth it. You had Xbox 360, you had King of the Hill mode, a fun little mode that kept people playing online and arguably worth the money for Xbox Live. And even where you bought the product gave you a special pre-order. If you bought the game at GameStop, you got bonuses for Scorpion, Best Buy for Sub-Zero, Amazon for Reptile, and these granted you a classic skin and classic fatality for the ninja if you got it at the respective store. Kitana could be gotten at Toys R Us, Melina was at Walmart, and Jade came if you pre-ordered MK Annihilation on Blu-ray. Did I mention that the 360 versions also came with skins? I guess this was to make up for the fact that Marcus from Gears of War didn't go through. Anyhow, the fact that you got a goodie based on what store you pre-ordered it at was amazing. Considering that nowadays most people only have an EB Games/GameStop incentive, if not Amazon, why did that go? How long has it been since you had to think about what you wanted to pre-order to get exclusive goodies? And on top of that, Mortal Kombat 9 had 2 special pre-order versions. The collector's edition sold for $100 total. Yes, it was $50 less than later bundles, but when adjusted for inflation, it's closer to $130. Like all MK bundles, it comes with a steel bookcase. Hooray! It had a statue of Scorpion vs Sub-Zero. This is officially canonical proof that the Popsicle Man can suck pepper all day, every day, don't at me. And in the box, they threw in an art book. Considering Mortal Kombat 9 was Mortal Kombat 1-3 plus, for diehards, this alone was arguably worth it. Actually, why didn't NRS sell an art book from art from the Midway and NRS eras? This could have been an easy and profitable anniversary gift given that it was made in limited supply for those who pre-ordered it. Or they could have made this en masse with a special edition pre-order with an exclusive cover to make that version much more valuable. That's just me. NRS didn't forget the super diehard that they had announced the Mortal Kombat 9 Tournament Edition arcade stick for $150, or about $200 in 2022. These only had 20,000 copies made, and each one had a plate on the side telling you which number it was off the assembly line. You can open it, store games in there, and play Mortal Kombat 9 with a wood and metal replica of the MK arcade stick with a memory foam base and a modern paint job. Given the diagonal buttons, you could probably play the SNK games, but I haven't tried that out. I don't own this stick. Also included were skins and console wallpapers via download codes. This also had a special pre-order classic skin and fatality for Ermac. $50 more for just the game and fight stick, and the Ermac stuff might have been a bit pricey, but it was an MK focused stick made for the game, compared to other Titan sticks that just use a stock stick and slap game related art on it and call it a day. This wasn't nostalgia, it was legit. It was a 1-to-1 Suzo hat built with the same part as the actual arcade machine. The 90s were back and fully functional. It's a no-brainer for the Mortal Kombat fan who would spend the entire weekend glued to the game or still have the muscle memory of the arcade games. And NRS knew it was a no-brainer as they did eventually release a standalone version of the stick, so people could get the collector's edition and buy the stick and not get stuck with 2 copies of the game. It should have been $100 given that no game comes with it. It was still a worthy investment, given the amount of hours it would sink into that controller, and it would pay for itself given all the quarters you wouldn't have to spend on Shang Tsung, Goro, and Shao Kahn induced continues. But sometimes, people can actually ride the obvious. NRS said, it's not just Mortal Kombat 9, it's Mortal Kombat Season. They commissioned PDP to make a limited edition classic arcade stick for $130, or about $170 today. It's not as premium as the MK9 version, it doesn't open, but it does look about 85% of what made the original arcade version cabinet beautiful, and has the memory foam, made from the same material as the original machine was, from plexiglass to wood type. But this one was limited to only 6,000 copies with that steel plate number on it. And since it wasn't Mortal Kombat 9, it came with Mortal Kombat Arcade Collection via a download code. And yes, the sticks were obviously cross-compatible with the other game. Let this sink in. This entire second fight stick was done to incentivize sales for the Mortal Kombat Arcade Collection itself, which are Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. They brought out the red carpet for 2 of the 4 essential mainline Mortal Kombat games at the time, and make that 3 if you were a classical 2D purist and counted Mortal Kombat 1 as essential. With MK9 launching, these sticks served 3 or 4 of the must-have Mortal Kombat games on one console. NRS didn't have to go this far. As I said, Mortal Kombat 9 can stand on its own, and it still does. They felt they had to give back to the fans for saying thank you, for all the support. After all those years, helped them survive by buying Mortal Kombat vs. DC, for letting Mortal Kombat get another chance at life, a reboot back to the glory days, and for not giving up on them when Armageddon could have been the end of Mortal Kombat forever with Midway collapsing. NRS made sure to let fans know we would not be here without you. And this is just the extras, not even the game itself, let alone Mortal Kombat 9 Complete Edition, which made an already great game even better. As standard procedure, Complete Edition added all the skins and put all the DLC fighters on a disc. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 Reign returned like nothing happened, and the promotional Freddy Krueger actually seemed to fit in gameplay wise. 3D era Kenshi was added to the roster, and seeing a 3D era character come backwards into 2D and fit flawless victory was a more than welcome treat. The biggest, however, was the newest female ninja, and at the time the newest MK character to date, Scarlet, a 90s Mortal Kombat 2 rumor, finally a real playable character. So what happened to this red carpet treatment? It didn't disappear overnight. So what does this mean for NRS? When a gaming company drops the ball, I usually am upset at best, and worst case, I become apathetic to the franchise until a sign of improvement occurs. A few examples ranging from somewhat upset to complete apathy include Metroid Other M, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, Halo 5, Final Fantasy X-2, Skyrim, and GTA 5 after a few years had passed, Fire Emblem Fates, which included Birthright, Conquest, and Revelation, Dead Rising 4, Persona 5, EA's Battlefront 2, and Guilty Gear Strive, just to name a few. This, however, is one of the few times I am legitimately angry to where I can't be apathetic, even more so than Guilty Gear Strive. I'm angry that Mortal Kombat, regardless of me thinking it was the best franchise, a mech franchise, or the worst fighting franchise out there that was barely a fighting game, it used to be a franchise that was an example of doing fan service right and rewarding long-term fans. Not anymore. It's disrespectful to the fact that Mortal Kombat is the top-selling traditional fighting franchise, not counting Dragon Ball or Smash Brothers, and it's straight up just vomiting down the throats of all the fans who have supported them for these past 30 years. Now, especially in retrospect, Mortal Kombat 11's fanservice comes off as a half-hearted attempt to keep you playing Mortal Kombat 11 instead of fixing the gameplay speed and letting players do the fun combos you have from Mortal Kombat 3 to X, as well as nerfing the sexiness of the women in the costumes. They chased away the hardcore and moderate fans who loved the no fucks given approach of Mortal Kombat, with boobs, blood, broken bones, block button, and brutality, trying to pander to people who would never ever pick up Mortal Kombat, even with these changes, leaving less people who would actually buy the game. It just shows that there's a much larger problem: poor management and a severe lack of communication. Warner Brothers is even projected to lose $3 billion given their handling of their Discovery streaming service. There is clear infighting about who's really in charge, what's okay, and what isn't, based on all the promises made and not delivered, and Mortal Kombat before 11 almost always delivered. There are even points where you can tell Ed Boon just doesn't have the same passion for his beloved work. How much does Warner Brothers intervene with NRS? What are the internal politics? Did NRS make the same mistake that Studio 343 made by hiring people who hate Mortal Kombat and are there for a check and there to destroy it? Or did most of the old soul and talent actually leave or sadly pass away? Does NRS need more sales for the next project funding? Does it need more sales for Mortal Kombat to come back? All these questions are valid, but no answers for us outsiders. Warner Bros. And NRS, until this gets smoothed out, will keep miscommunicating, and one day they will eventually misstep hard. And the day that happens is when the Mortal Kombat could be put on the chopping block. If Warner Bros. And NRS can't get their heads straight and course correct before even announcing Mortal Kombat 12 and aiming at Mortal Kombat fans again, MK will wind up like Dead or Alive or Eternal Champions. Coincidentally, these are the only other two franchises I felt extreme anger when they failed and not apathy. And both happened to be fighters. Dead or Alive, like Mortal Kombat, was the game that was about being sexy and violent and all about that fan service, no pun intended. It always gave the fans what they wanted, including sexy posters up to 4 editions worth, Master Chief in Dead or Alive 4, Virtual Fighter Guest in Dead or Alive 5, Maya from King of Fighters as Dead or Alive 5 Last Round DLC, and they even had special fight stick editions for Dead or Alive 3, 4, 5, and 5 Last Round. Dead or Alive 6, like Mortal Kombat 11, handled the game poorly to where it killed the main flying franchise all but officially. There was no fight stick for this version despite Extreme Beach 3 having a stupid amount of pre-order content, and the deluxe version of Doa 6 had music, some skins, but the most important thing was one bonus fighter who was a Cosby clone, overpriced on the regular, but when it did go on sale, it was cheaper than the base game at regular price, so there is that. Like Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, add a poor story mode, dumbed down gameplay mechanics, including bringing a fight ball with a comeback mechanic, top it up with overpriced DLC bundles that can go into the $100 range, and boom, a franchise on the verge of sinking or swim. For Dead or Alive's 25th anniversary, they ported Dead or Alive Ultimate 1, Ultimate 2, 3, 4 onto the Xbox One, making them playable alongside 5 and 6 on one console as well as Game Pass, but they used the rest of their time and money to make Doa Gacha crossovers and the exclusive beach game in Asia. It makes money, a lot of it, but the franchise proper is up in the air with no hint of a mainline sequel in sight. They abandoned the model that kept Dead or Alive 5 financially viable and alive for years and got greedy, wanting all of that year's profit at once. And when that blew up, they just found another greedy scheme and worked that instead of also course correcting Dead or Alive 6 and fixing it to maximize long-term profits. The PC version is only alive because there is a lobby system compared to the console versions where Dead or Alive 5 had a lobby system. Warner Bros. And Koei Tech will need to understand that the gacha model is not sustainable for the long term. And for NRS Warner Bros., there is so much grinding in Mortal Kombat 11 for everything. No, there is so much grinding for skins and color swaps, you could have a computer AI fight for you on autopilot and unlock them. A $60 gacha game for cosmetics, it's not worth the time or the money, with the autopilot even. And unlike Mortal Kombat 11, the Doa Gachas actually have some of the distractions the fans actually asked for, if your girl was even selected to be in the crossover. But to give Mortal Kombat 11 some credit, Warner Bros. And NRS made base Mortal Kombat 11 and the first Kombat pack last a little over a year before announcing Aftermath, while Dead or Alive 6 blew its load in about 10 months with nothing coming after, not even a balancing patch. On a darker note, Eternal Champions is Mortal Kombat's possible alternate and arguably worst fate. It was a series that did Mortal Kombat aesthetic violence, Street Fighter gameplay, and arguably did both things better than their inspirations. And it was one of the few quote-unquote combat clones to actually get any semblance of respect. It had 2 spin-offs, game books, a comic line, a UK magazine line, and an amazing Sega CD sequel which still hasn't been ported officially. And despite the sequel being a Sega CD exclusive, it sold more than the Genesis and Mega Drive versions of Street Fighter 2 in the United States, which is no small feat given that SF2 had an arcade presence and a strong one. Sounds a lot like Mortal Kombat in the 90s and 2000s, sans a cheesy 90s movie, a Saturday morning cartoon for kids, a fun web series, a drinking game. But despite all that hype, merchandise, and promise Eternal Champions had, all of it ended and the 3rd entry for Sega Saturn got cancelled because Sega of Japan wanted to have Virtua Fighter be the Sega cash cow next to Sonic, and not Sega of America's Eternal Champions. Sega killed Eternal Champions and took that development money and put it into the marketing budget of Virtua Fighter. Years later, Virtua Fighter has yet to put out a new entry since Virtua Fighter 5 on PS3 in 2012, 1 year after Mortal Kombat 9 dropped. That Virtua Fighter 5 HD on PS4 doesn't count. It's an HD reskin, it's online only, and not a new entry proper. And while Sega has announced a new entry, will it actually develop and deliver? How do we know this one won't wind up cancelled like many anticipated fighting projects like Tekken Cross Street Fighter? The lowball they are trying to feed Mortal Kombat fans, we are not eating it. They will do this and compare the lack of sales to Multiverse's money. And at the end, they'll basically destroy Mortal Kombat and keep them doing injustice because comics have had much more longevity than Mortal Kombat has, 90 years versus 30 years, and siphon off employees to push into work on multiverses to keep it growing as much as possible. And if the greed persists, both MK and multiverses will fizzle out with nothing to replace them, maybe not even that rumored WWE action fighter game. And knowing Warner Brothers, should that happen, they'll keep the rights and give no games, letting MK suffer its final fatality.